As a seasoned Android user for over a decade now, my recent switch to the iPhone 15 Pro Max has been a really eye-opening experience, revealing both strengths and areas for improvement in my favourite OS. In this in-depth review, I'll delve into various aspects of the iPhone 15 Pro Max and work out if Android can learn a thing or two from iOS. I've got to say, while the design of the iPhone 15 Pro Max didn't immediately wow me, I have to say the premium materials and the impeccable fit and finish reminded me of the standards set by brands like Sony and Samsung, at least in the Android realm. The device definitely exudes a sense of quality that sets it apart from lots of other phones, and it's understandable to me now why people hold Apple's designs in such high esteem. I'm expecting lots of brands to at least attempt to replicate the titanium finish over the coming year. It's deceptively light but a little bit demure. You could call the iPhone colour options a little dull, and I've got to say I can't disagree too much. I wouldn't say the boxy shape is uncomfortable this year, as there's some rounded sides now, but I definitely prefer rounded corners on the back of a phone and a flat screen on the front to the many edges of the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Compared to the recent Pixel 8 Pro, I find that phone just more approachable and visually appealing, especially in that blue finish, because it is a softer phone in almost every regard. You can quite easily see that Apple hasn't diverged as well too much from the iPhone 12 Pro Max to this, the 15 Pro Max, save a few things have increased in size and reduced bezels. I don't necessarily love the design, but it is functional, and I guess most importantly for Apple, consistent. Samsung has received some flack recently for doing the same with the S22 to the S23, but it does definitely help create an obvious visual identity, and something that I don't think deserves that much hate. Looks aside though, the move from a Lightning port to USB-C is definitely a substantial move away from the company's TikTok design style approach. Honestly, it surprised me with its impact. This change has facilitated seamless compatibility with a wealth of my accessories, such as SSDs and lots of other trinkets I've previously used with all of my Android devices. Being able to hook up an SSD to offload files or backup photos without a dongle is a huge plus. The file manager application on iOS though left a lot to be desired. It definitely needs some work for sure, because it doesn't work as seamlessly here as it does on Android, so Android is definitely winning, at least in the file management aspect. To me, iOS has always felt lacking in overall imagination, but I will admit that it does come to life with the utilisation of specific automation features, particularly the focus modes, which have been around for a while. Integrating these modes with other Apple devices, such as the Apple Watch, which I do actually use even without having an iPhone, have proved valuable during fitness routines and work hours, especially when switching between a Mac Studio and a MacBook Pro, which I do use on a day-to-day basis. Although it's a long shot, I would love to see something like this implemented for Windows and Android users, but I do think Google could easily do this with Chrome OS and the Android phone. You know all about these other ecosystem strengths of Apple, and that is a slippery slope that can easily have you heavily invested because each new product is so cohesively implemented. It's certainly not all roses though, as there are a number of reasons why I do prefer Android, but I will say iOS's handling of notifications is the hardest for me to deal with. The visual appeal and utility of Android notifications definitely makes iOS's version feel like a 2013 relic. Credit where it's due though, I have noticed that pings arrive way faster than they do on my Pixel, but maybe that can be fixed with app updates to those applications via the Play Store. iOS shortcuts have already become a powerful tool in my regular phone usage, offering automation features that I've been sorely missing when switching back to my Android phones. There are ways to do similar automation on Android, but they're always just not that well integrated, nor are they easy to add to your day-to-day processes without added baggage, and it's something I'd love to see Android do a little bit better in future. This ties in perfectly with the new action button, which replaces the silent switch. It's fully programmable to do things like launch an app, toggle silent mode, accessibility modes, or most powerfully, a shortcut routine. You can disable it entirely if you want, but I've set it to run a routine that offers 8 more shortcuts on screen, like quick Wi-Fi speed testing or checking my clipboard contents. I haven't found this button truly groundbreaking at any stage, but you can play around with it to get this toggle working how you want, and I do think having that option is something we rarely see from Apple wholesale. If like me though, you stick to lots of Google services like like Google One, Photos, Gmail, Chrome, and more on top of that, Apple has made it easy over the past few years to use these as default applications on your iPhone without losing out on any functionality. Because of that, I have absolutely zero intention of using Safari or Apple Mail, and switching back and forth between Android and iOS has become easier year over year than I've expected. Going all in would add more roadblocks and problems, but this might improve further once sideloading is added in a future iOS update in 2024, and I'm excited to see just how Apple takes on that challenge. I do absolutely adore the display on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and it stacks up excellently with the S23 Ultra and even the Pixel 8 Pro, which I do think edges it. That said, this is a large, bright, vibrant display, and it's tuned to perfection. The big display notch is not ideal and it does cut into content, but Face Unlock here is second to none, and I do love using it, and I hope that Google can keep pace with their software-based solution, or just flat out re-add 3D face scanning tech alongside the excellent in-display fingerprint scanner, something that Apple does sorely lack. Baking in UI portions to this upper section of the screen is kind of cool, but it's not something that will change an Android user's life, and it has been around for over a year now, so lots of applications do support it, and when it does work, it's a nice little trinket to have as part of the software stack. I've also tried the Resident Evil Village demo, which was touted when this phone launched. I'm actually super impressed that a game with such visuals is able to run on a smartphone without any major compromises. Qualcomm has been playing catch up to the Bionic chip series for a long time now, but having PC quality titles in the palm of your hand, all in real-time rendering and not connected to services like GeForce Now, is genuinely quite incredible to see. Pair this with an Xbox controller and plug into a TV, and you have what amounts to a portable console in your pocket with those PC-like visuals. I'm skeptical that most people will do this, but I do applaud the capability, and maybe it could be the future of gaming for lots of people. Maybe I'm wrong. If more of my Steam library were able to come to mobile, I probably could see it be a bit more viable for me, and I'd love to see more titles on mobile devices like this. The iPhone 15 Pro Max has definitely impressed me with its excellent battery life. I didn't get any issues with overheating before the most recent update to fix those, so I have no real complaints there. I have enabled the battery limit feature though to cap charging at 80%, and I do hope that this is going to improve the long-term lifespan, given that the iPhone 14 last year had lots of problems with battery degradation. During weekdays, the device has lasted genuinely 2 to 3 days between charges, even with moderate usage, and stood up to heavier weekend use for me. I get similar lifespan with the Galaxy S23 Ultra, so while it's a long-lasting battery, it's not exponentially better than probably one of the best Android phones that you can go out and buy. The camera system, though solid on the 15 Pro Max and being updated, still has some minor issues like lens flaring in highlight scenarios. It's been a problem with iPhones for a long time since it added 3 lenses. I definitely lean more towards the Pixel 7 Pro and the 8 Pro, as well as to a lesser extent the S23 Ultra, at least for stills photography. I'm not a huge fan of shooting RAW when using a smartphone period, so while that could be a solution, I just think being able to point and shoot and get reliable results is more important to me. I will say the iPhone does that fairly well with clear, sharp photos, but I would like to see skin tones get more attention. It skews towards warmer tones, which can be a little bit annoying, as I'm sort of spoilt with the Pixel with regard to real tone and skin tone reproduction, so it does stand out like a sore thumb to me when using the iPhone 15 Pro Max's camera. The 5x telephoto is a big improvement, but again, it can't quite hang in there when you get above 10x. You get lots of artifacts and fuzziness baked into your photos. Android definitely still does this better, and I don't expect that to change for a while as we get bigger and better sensors and lens systems over here on the Google side of things. However, I will say the iPhone absolutely excels in video recording and puts Android to shame. In fact, it actually provides me with a backup for my mirrorless cameras because of how clean the footage looks at absolutely every frame rate and resolution. I also adore the smooth transitions between lenses, which is something that a lot of Android OEMs really need to work on, or at least devices that I've been using over the past 18 to 24 months have a few problems with, save a few minor exceptions. There's also something else I noticed when using the iPhone 15 Pro Max: the vast array of high quality iPhone accessories that are available, and this left me yearning for similar options in the Android world. From camera cages to lens adapters and premium cases, Apple's ecosystem stood out, highlighting a gap that's only recently begun to close for Android, and I would love to see more manufacturers step into Android, but of course, if they're driven by the bottom line, that may never ever happen. So after spending the better part of a few months using the iPhone 15 Pro Max, it has challenged my preconceptions about iOS and the iPhone lineup. It's been the first Apple device in a few years that I think could outright replace an Android phone in my pocket. While the S23 Ultra and the Google Pixel 8 Pro still hold their allure for me, the iPhone's performance, especially in video recording and automation, has left a lasting impression as someone that spends a lot of time with a camera in their hand. At the moment, I will say I'm perfectly catered for with the wealth of Android phones out there because I can pick and choose exactly what I want and need, but I've learned more about what I desire from Android thanks to the strengths of iOS, like the truly impressive shortcuts feature as I mentioned. It's hard not to be impressed with other areas of the iPhone 15 Pro Max, like that build quality, the display consistency, the battery longevity, and even though I wouldn't call it the best phone out there, I personally think that Honor still belongs to the Galaxy S23 Ultra, it's a great yardstick for seeing how flagship Android phones are stacking up against the biggest selling brand in the world. Every single Android OEM should be looking to emulate some of those key features I mentioned. And in the interest of fairness and as an ongoing experiment, I'm planning on keeping the iPhone as a backup device or sidearm, if you will. After all, if we know what's going on over in Apple land, we can better ascertain where Android is going right and where it's going wrong. I want to ask you though, have you tried the iPhone 15 Pro Max out for yourself or made the switch or flat out hate Apple? Let me know if there's anything you think Android can also learn from the iPhone down in the comment sections below. It's always interesting to hear your thoughts, and I will catch you in the next one.